The world doesn't exactly roll out the red carpet when you're born as a hedgehog. No trumpets, no applause, just a tumble into existence, squirming and covered in what feels like soft bristles. That's right, soft. For now, your quills are flexible and harmless, which is good news for your mom. She's already done enough by carrying you around for months, and the last thing she needs is to deal with a full set of spikes on the way out. So here you are, in the safety of a cozy den, looking more like a fuzzy burrito than a walking defense mechanism. Your first few hours are deceptively peaceful. Mom's nearby, keeping a watchful eye while you get used to your new body, a tiny nose for sniffing, stubby legs that wobble like jelly, and a tail that, let's face it, doesn't quite know what it's doing yet. She gives you a few encouraging nudges, her way of saying, "Welcome to the world, kid. Don't mess this up." For now, you feel untouchable, wrapped in the protective aura of her presence. Life doesn't seem too bad. After all, what could possibly go wrong? The den itself is your little fortress. It's warm, it's hidden, and most importantly, it's predator-free. Outside, the world is a chaos of claws, teeth, and hunger. But in here, it's just you, Mom, and the occasional rustling of leaves. Your only job is to grow, drink milk, and try not to look too ridiculous as you learn how to move around. It's not the most glamorous start, but hey, it beats being born into the open, like some poor zebra foal already running for its life within minutes. And then it happens. The moment that defines your entry into hedgehoghood. Those soft quills of yours, they're hardening. At first, it's subtle, just a slight stiffness you barely notice. But before long, your body transforms into a walking pincushion. Each quill sharpens to a point, turning you into a creature no predator in their right mind would want to mess with. Or so you think. For now, you're just proud of your newfound spikiness, parading around the den like a knight in armor, blissfully unaware of the challenges waiting for you. As the days pass, you start to explore the edges of your cozy little world. The den feels safe, but there's something irresistible about the faint glow of light coming from outside. Curiosity pulls you toward the entrance, and before you know it, you're stepping out into the open for the very first time. The ground feels strange under your paws, the air is crisp, and the smells are overwhelming, a mix of earth, grass, and something faintly metallic. It's exciting, and for a brief moment you feel invincible. After all, you've got quills now. What's there to fear? Mom keeps a close watch, her sharp eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. She's seen it all before. The owls that swoop down without warning, the cunning fishers that can flip a hedgehog onto its vulnerable belly, and the ever-present threat of hungry predators who see you as a challenge worth taking. But you don't know any of this yet. To you, the world is just one big playground, full of trees to climb, leaves to chew, and scents to investigate. And oh, those trees. The first time you see one, it's like discovering a whole new dimension. Mom shows you how to climb, her claws digging into the bark with ease. You try to mimic her, your tiny claws scraping awkwardly against the trunk. It's not as easy as it looks, and you quickly discover that climbing with a body covered in quills is a delicate operation. One wrong move and you're a rolling ball of spikes, tumbling back to the ground with a thud. But you're determined, and after a few failed attempts, you finally make it to a low branch. The view is underwhelming. But hey, it's a start. Your days quickly settle into a routine of eating, climbing, and stumbling through life. Mom teaches you what's safe to chew, bark, twigs, leaves, and what isn't. You learn to avoid brightly colored berries and anything that smells off. Food isn't exactly gourmet, but it keeps you growing. And the best part? Salt. Oh, the joy of finding a salty rock or a patch of dried sweat on a piece of wood. It's like nature's version of candy, and you can't get enough. But for all the charm of these early days, there's an undercurrent of tension. Mom knows what's out there, even if you don't. Every rustle in the bushes, every shadow that passes overhead, is a potential threat. She's constantly on alert, ready to defend you at a moment's notice. Her quills are longer, sharper, and more intimidating than yours, and she knows how to use them. You watch in awe as she turns her back to an approaching predator, raising her quills like a spiked barricade. It's a warning that says, "Come closer, and you'll regret it." And yet, even with Mom's protection, there's a sense of fragility to your existence. You're still small, still figuring out how to survive in a world that seems designed to test you at every turn. The predators are relentless, the terrain is unforgiving, and your own clumsiness doesn't help. But for now, You have mom, your den, and a growing set of quills that make you feel like you might just have a shot at this whole survival thing. As you drift off to sleep each night, nestled in the safety of the den, you dream of a future where your quills make you invincible, where predators flee at the sight of you, and where every tree is an easy climb. It's a comforting thought, but deep down, something tells you that life might not be as simple as it seems. After all, being born with spikes is one thing. Figuring out how to use them, that's a whole other challenge. Stepping out into the big wide world was exciting at first. Fresh air, new smells, and a sense of freedom made you feel like the king, or queen, of the forest. But that sense of wonder doesn't last long. As you venture farther from the safety of the den, the real world starts showing its teeth. Literally. Your spikes, which you once thought made you untouchable, are about to get their first real test. Spoiler alert, life isn't nearly as scared of you as you hoped. Let's start with predators. In your youthful naivety, you think the forest respects your quills. After all, you're a living fortress, right? Wrong. Turns out, plenty of creatures are willing to roll the dice on a hedgehog snack. First, there's the fisher, a sleek predator with a nasty habit of figuring out how to flip hedgehogs onto their unprotected bellies. Then come the owls, silent assassins swooping down from above like something out of a horror movie. And don't forget the big cats, leopards, lynxes, and mountain lions, all of whom see you less as a challenge and more as a spiky burrito worth unwrapping. Your first encounter with a predator is a wake-up call. You're rummaging for food, happily munching on bark, when a shadow crosses your path. Before you can even process what's happening, there's a fisher staring you down. You freeze, thinking your quills are enough to scare it off. But this fisher isn't fazed. It circles you, looking for an opening. You try to shuffle backward, awkwardly raising your quills, but the fisher darts in, flipping you over with shocking precision. For a terrifying moment, you're on your back, legs flailing, completely vulnerable. Thankfully, your frantic kicking lands a lucky hit, and the fisher scurries away. You survive, but barely. Welcome to reality. Food isn't exactly a walk in the park either. Sure, you've got a diet that doesn't put you in direct competition with many animals. After all, not everyone's fighting over tree bark. But that doesn't mean it's easy. The forest floor is a constant scavenger hunt, and finding enough to eat is a daily challenge. You start to realize just how monotonous your meals are. Bark, twigs, and the occasional leaf make up the bulk of your diet, and no matter how hungry you are, there's only so much excitement you can muster for the same bland menu day after day. But you know what is exciting? Subscribing to our channel. So, go ahead and do that. To make matters worse, your love of salt has you venturing into risky territory. You can't help it. Salt is like candy for hedgehogs, and you're willing to go to great lengths to find it. Sometimes that means licking old sweaty rocks or venturing close to human camps where salty objects like tools and boots are left unattended. This newfound addiction gets you into trouble more than once, like the time you almost got caught by a dog while gnawing on the handle of a salty shovel. Lesson learned? Not really. The salt's worth it. Then there's the climbing. When you're young, trees seem like the ultimate sanctuary. High branches keep you safe from most predators, and they're a great place to snack on some bark in peace. But climbing isn't as simple as it looks. Your quills, which are supposed to be your greatest defense, are also your biggest inconvenience. Every movement risks a slip or a snag, and when you do fall, and you will fall, it's not a graceful tumble. It's a quill-filled crash landing that leaves you bruised, sore, and occasionally missing a few spikes. After a few particularly rough falls, you start to question if climbing is even worth the hassle. Spoiler, it is, but it doesn't get any easier. Social life is another area where things aren't exactly rosy. Unlike wolves or lions, hedgehogs are solitary creatures. There's no pack or pride to fall back on. No friendly faces to share the burden of survival. It's just you, navigating the forest alone, day after day. Sure, you might cross paths with another hedgehog occasionally, but the interactions are brief and transactional. If you're lucky, it's a polite nose bump before you both go your separate ways. If you're not, it's a standoff over food or territory, complete with raised quills and plenty of posturing. Mating season adds its own layer of chaos. For most of the year, you barely think about other hedgehogs, but come mating time, everything changes. Finding a mate involves a mix of luck, patience, and the ability to avoid stabbing each other during courtship. And yes, that's as awkward as it sounds. Even if you manage to win over a mate, the relationship is fleeting. Once the season's over, It's back to the solitary life, leaving you to wonder if all that effort was even worth it. As you continue navigating the struggles of adolescence, you start to notice something unsettling. The forest is changing. Trees are being cut down, paths are being carved through your territory, and the presence of humans is becoming more common. At first, it's just an occasional hiker or a distant campfire, but before long, the forest feels less like a sanctuary and more like a shrinking island. Encounters with humans become increasingly risky. Some are harmless, watching you from a distance or snapping photos. Others aren't so friendly, seeing you as a pest or a curiosity to be captured. You learn to tread carefully, avoiding areas that smell too strongly of humans. For all its challenges, though, there are moments of triumph. You grow stronger, more confident, and more resourceful. The predator encounters that once left you trembling now feel like calculated risks. You've learned how to outwit fishers, how to climb higher to avoid owls, and how to navigate the forest with a mix of caution and determination. You might not have allies, but you've got experience, and that counts for something. Still, as the days stretch into weeks and months, the grind of survival starts to wear on you. Every meal is a struggle, every predator encounter a gamble, and every fall a reminder of your limitations. The world you once saw as full of possibilities now feels like a gauntlet designed to test you at every turn. And yet, you keep going, driven by some instinctive need to survive, to push forward, to prove that being born as a hedgehog might not be glamorous, but it's a life worth fighting for. Adulthood as a hedgehog feels like you've hit the big leagues, but it doesn't take long to realize that the rules haven't changed. The stakes are just higher. You've got more experience under your belt, sure, and maybe a few more spikes to your name, but the world isn't cutting you any slack. If anything, the challenges have only multiplied. The predators are smarter, the forest is tougher, and even your body is starting to remind you that no one stays sharp forever. Let's talk predators. You thought you had them figured out during your reckless younger years, but adulthood brings a whole new level of threat. Fishers, your lifelong nemesis, aren't just opportunistic hunters. They've become full-blown strategists. They've perfected the art of flipping you onto your belly, and now they work faster and with terrifying precision. Owls are no longer content to wait for mistakes. They're hunting with the kind of silence that makes your quills useless if you don't spot them in time. And then there are the mountain lions. They've started targeting your face, the one spot your quills can't protect. It's like they've read the manual on hedgehogs and decided to hack the system. Every encounter is a battle of wits and reflexes. Your quills, once your pride and joy, feel like a double-edged sword. Sure, they're still your best defense, but predators are relentless, and even a few well-placed quills don't guarantee your safety. Some predators have learned to endure the sting, taking a hit if it means getting a meal. You start to realize that your spikes aren't invincible armor. They're just another part of the gamble that is survival. Food, meanwhile, doesn't get any more exciting. The bark, twigs, and leaves that sustained you in your youth now feel like the world's worst buffet. You chew out of necessity, not pleasure, and every meal is a reminder of how monotonous life can be. Your love for salt hasn't faded, though. In fact, it's become a bit of an obsession. You find yourself venturing farther and farther in search of that salty fix, often wandering dangerously close to human activity. Sometimes you luck out and find a discarded tool or sweat-stained piece of wood to gnaw on. Other times, you're chased off by dogs or narrowly avoid an encounter with something worse. But no matter how risky it gets, you keep coming back. The salt's just that good. And then there's the loneliness. As a hedgehog, you're a professional introvert. Social life isn't just rare, it's practically non-existent. Your days are spent wandering the forest alone, foraging for food and avoiding danger. The occasional nose bump with another hedgehog is about as close as you get to companionship, and even those brief encounters are often tinged with tension. Mating season is the only time you feel a semblance of connection, but even that's fleeting. Courtship is awkward at best. Two spiky creatures trying not to stab each other is more comedic than romantic. Once the season ends, it's back to the solitary grind. As you navigate the trials of adulthood, your body begins to show the wear and tear of life in the wild. Those once sharp quills, your greatest asset, start to lose their edge. Some have broken off in predator encounters, others have simply worn down over time. Your once nimble movements become slower, more deliberate. Climbing trees, once second nature, now feels like a chore. The falls are more frequent, the landings harder. Every scrape and bruise reminds you that age isn't just a number, it's a reality that's catching up with you. The forest itself is changing too. Human activity is becoming more intrusive. Trees are disappearing, replaced by paths and structures that carve up your territory. Encounters with humans are no longer rare. They're an unavoidable part of your existence. Some humans are curious, watching you from a distance or snapping photos. Others are less kind, seeing you as a nuisance or a threat. You learn to tread carefully, avoiding areas where their presence feels too strong. But even with caution, it's clear that the forest you once knew is shrinking, and the safe spaces are disappearing. As the years pass, you find yourself relying more on experience than physical strength. You've survived long enough to develop a kind of intuition, a sixth sense for danger. You know which paths to avoid, which trees offer the best shelter, and which predators to take seriously. It's a skill set honed through years of trial and error, and it keeps you alive even as your body begins to fail you. But survival feels less like a triumph and more like a grind. The days blur together, a constant cycle of foraging, dodging predators, and searching for shelter. By the time you reach old age, the forest feels like a different world. The predators that once saw you as a challenge now see you as an easy target. Your brittle quills and slower reflexes make you vulnerable in ways you never imagined. Even the simple act of climbing a tree feels like an insurmountable task. You spend more time on the forest floor, where danger is ever present. The loneliness, once a quiet companion, now feels oppressive. The isolation of hedgehog life becomes heavier, a constant reminder that you're nearing the end. And yet, there's a strange sense of peace in your final days. You've endured more than most creatures could imagine. You've faced predators, survived falls, and navigated the complexities of a world that often felt stacked against you. Each scar on your body tells a story, a testament to your resilience. You've outlived many of the challenges that once seemed insurmountable, and while the forest may not remember you, your survival feels like its own quiet victory. Your last moments are spent beneath a tree, the kind of tree you've climbed countless times before. The air is cool, the forest quiet. For a brief moment, you let yourself rest, your body still and your mind calm. Life as a hedgehog was never easy. It was messy, dangerous, and often lonely. But it was yours, and that makes it worth it.